National Assembly members raised concern over the chaos that led to death of one and major destruction in Kombo Sanyang. WHO, in its fight against the pandemic, donates medical equipment worth $1 million to the Gambia. And as Ghana introduces new tax measures in reviving the country's economy, experts worry about its sustainability. These and more coming on The World Today. Stay with us. Good evening, you're watching The World Today with me, Sahna Tunkar, and now to our news in detail. The Honorable Member for Kiang Central on Wednesday made a statement on the violent protests which took place on Monday in the village of Sanyang. The National Assembly members condemned the killing in Sanyang and other cases that had been reported throughout the country. The country's top lawmakers suggested that the authorities should conduct a thorough investigation and submit reports and recommendations for the guidance.
The Honorable Member for Banjul South, Fatoumata Tumanjai, recommended that all the alleged killings that took place should be investigated and a report to be presented before the Parliament. According to her, the government should invest in the youth and stop depending on foreign aid.
I think they should also invest a lot more rather than depend on goodwill from outside to develop our youth. Honorable Speaker, the youth are always recognized as the backbone of this country. But what are we doing? We should recognize the importance of youth development in nation building. And I think if this government is serious about nation building, they shouldn't pay lip service in youth development. They should focus more and invest more in youth empowerment, in youth development. That is the only way they can address the root causes of these issues.
The Honorable Member for Nyamina East, Omar Sise, argued that the security sector is meant to protect the life of the people and their properties. He added that 3 people have been reportedly killed in his constituency, saying if the killings continue, the security sector reform will be questioned.
And obviously, if we continue seeing people being killed on the street, obviously then one will be doubting whether or not the security sector reform it is actually going as one would expect it.
Fatoumata Jawara, the National Assembly member for Talinding, pointed out that the security sector alone should not be blamed, saying the actions of the youth should be condemned. She recommended the adequate equipment of the security forces so as to carry out their responsibilities effectively.
This is a collective responsibility. We cannot blame the government, neither the police institution. We all condemn the killing that happened at Faraba Bantang. We all condemn the security officers. It means that we are disarming them. If we want the security personnel to operate and put this country in the right direction, we must equip them and we must encourage them. But we should not be saying that the police are not doing their job with the risk attached to their work.
Sanyang grabbed national attention on Monday when an angry mob stalked the death of a native of the village, burnt down Sanyang police station, a fish meal factory, and stalls built on Sanyang beach. The incident triggered tension between the youths of Sanyang and the security forces. The protest was in retaliation for the killing of one Jibril Sai, a Senegalese national, who is said to have been working at the Sanyang fish meal plant. According to the Red Cross Society, the riot left 23 people injured, who were later rushed to Sanyang Hospital for treatment. Over 250 Senegalese migrants have also fled to Batakunku village over the violent protests. The Red Cross has since distributed blankets and hygiene products to the displaced population. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Khadija Tuseka.
National Assembly members condemned the unfortunate incident that happened in Sanyang on Monday. Now, the World Health Organization has handed over health equipment worth $1 million to the government of Gambia on Monday. The event held at the Central Medical Store in Kotu is part of the many efforts WHO is rendering to the Gambia government to help fight the COVID-19 pandemic. Binta Fati reports.
The items, which include a patient monitor and antigen-based rapid diagnostic test worth close to $1 million. WHO donated the equipment to boost the health sector and help the government to fight against the coronavirus. Dr. Ahmad Lamin Samate, the Minister of Health, expressed delight to have received the equipment. This, according to him, means early diagnosis and treatment, as it will fasten healthcare response in this uncertain period.
These are life-saving items that come to boost our ability to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. As the WHO representative, we call him the WR, has said, the response is in various forms, but also critical in the response is the identification of the people who are affected, who are infected. They need to be diagnosed. So having the diagnostic tools is a very important part of the response. Otherwise, we just assume people are infected and we don't have any evidence.
The WHO country representative to the Gambia, Dr. Dexter Tirini, affirmed the organization's commitment to supporting the government of the Gambia in the fight against COVID-19. Dr. Tirini called for concerted effort in curbing the further spread of the virus.
If every one of us take responsibility and use the preventive measures that we know, like washing hands, keeping distance, wearing the masks all the time, we can actually further also strengthen the response in the country. So there is no little contribution. Every contribution that we do as individuals is very important.
The year-long coronavirus pandemic continued to ravage the world. Many countries are still registering new cases despite vaccine rollouts. The Gambia currently recorded a total of 5,019 COVID-19 cases with a death toll of 153. The country also registered 4,525 recoveries as of the 13th of March 2021. The West African country in early March received its first batch of the COVID-19 vaccine through the COVAX initiative, and vaccination campaign is underway. However, many raised concern regarding the safety of the vaccine. In response, the Minister of Health, Dr. Samate, reassured the public of the efficacy of the vaccine and urged for the full participation in the vaccination campaign. Reporting for iAfrica TV News, I am Binta Fati.
As the world still grapples with the pandemic, WHO donates medical equipment to Gambia to boost its health sector. Now, moving on to the global front, Ethiopian healthcare workers are the first to benefit from the COVID-19 jab as the East African country began its coronavirus immunization campaign. Ethiopia is among the few African nations that have a significant COVID-19 testing capacity, according to the World Health Organization. But despite the rollout vaccines, there are growing concerns over rapid increase of new infections in the country.
Martha Tadese is a nurse at the Eka Kotebe Hospital in Addis Ababa that handles ICU patients of COVID-19. She is among the first to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
Our exposure is 100% with patients, and it's protect us.
The program is being rolled out to other health workers beyond the capital, Addis Ababa too. The World Health Organization recognizes Ethiopia among few countries in Africa with large testing capacity.
The effort to build the in-country laboratory capacity to perform COVID-19 PCR tests only began on 6 February 2020. Since then, Ethiopia has been able to roll out testing across the country with more than 2.2 million tests performed today.
But even with this progress, the situation is yet to be contained. Health facilities are strained.
Over the past weeks, we have been observing an alarming increase in the number of cases. I was just discussing with the CEO of Eka Kotobe, where actually the ICU beds are even exhausted.
The remaining 6 million doses of vaccines to be delivered to Ethiopia under the COVAX facility will arrive on an availability basis this year. With this, the country will vaccinate at least 20% of its population, then aim to purchase more for the rest of the country.
South Sudan has begun its oil production as part of efforts to boost the country's economy after years of civil war that hinders national development. And South Sudan is one of the most oil-dependent countries in the world, according to the World Bank. But authorities are initiating new plans to change the narratives, and the production company also plans to broaden its refining process in different parts of the country. Here is more in this report.
At an oil refinery in Bentiu in Unity State, production is underway. Trucks loaded with fuel refined there are already arriving in Juba. South Sudan's National Oil Corporation, Nile Petroleum, is managing the refinery.
So now we have come to the market, not just to get money, but to have at least a support to lead that high prices in the market get down.
Nile Petroleum says it plans to construct 4 more refineries across the country.
Currently, we are producing 3,000 barrels a day of refined products. Basically, diesel, about 30%, and then heavy fuel oil. They call it furnace. So about 70, 68%. In the next 2-3 months, we'll expand. It will be 10,000 barrels a day.
South Sudan's government says the heavy fuel will be used in generators that supply electricity to the city. It says it plans to build more power stations to increase that supply further. According to the World Bank, South Sudan is one of the most oil-dependent countries in the world.
Oil accounts for almost the totality of exports, 90% of revenue, and more than 1/3 of its gross domestic product. However, the country has been relying on fuel imports for the domestic market. The government now says it plans to start exporting refined fuel to South Sudan's neighboring countries.
In reviving the country's economy, South Sudan have begun oil production. Now coming back home, the latest contingent of the Gambia Armed Forces to the troubled Sudanese region of Darfur has returned home on Tuesday after their peacekeeping mission was cut short. The GAMCOI Batch 23 left Banjul in September for a 2-year military operation under United Nations coordination, and the contingent, which consisted of 132 men, was under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Ibrahim Akurubali.
The return of the Gambia military mission from Sudan followed the passage of United Nations resolution to reduce the number of military and police presence in Darfur beginning January 2021. After 7 months on the peacekeeping mission, the latest Gambian contingent in Darfur returned to Banjul, a situation well described by Major Abdou Jatta, the second in command of the GAMCOI 23.
We knew that the mission was not going to be long, because before our departure, it was clear to us that the mission's mandate would end on the 31st of December 2020. We went on that mandate. And then any mission you see runs under a mandate. Once the mandate is terminated, troops no longer stay. The mission's mandate was to end and a new mission was to take over, which is a civilian-led mission, unit called UNATAMS. So UNATAMS mandate kick off on the 1st of January 2021.
Brigadier General Turu Jawane, who doubles as the commander of the Republican National Guards, represented the Chief of Defense Staff in receiving the gunmen at Banjul International Airport. He commended the troops for their professionalism during the mission and welcomed them back to their bases.
We have an in-house rules. The in-house rules, one of them is you are to be quarantined at, is it Park? I don't know. One of the hotels, I don't know. But then again, you are all to be there. Simply, you are going to follow the test. I'm not too sure. If you are found to be negative, no problem, I'm sure you'll be discharged. If you are otherwise, that's another thing, not my fault. not your fault. But by Tuesday, let me remind you once again, you should be there. Then it will be worked out for you, your per diem or whatever, your salary or whatever, it will be computed and it will be paid to you. There's no doubt about that. We are ready for that.
The war in Darfur began in February 2003, when rebel groups accused the Sudanese government of oppressing Darfur's non-Arab population. The Gambia sent the first contingent of soldiers to Darfur in 2004, and since then, troops have regularly been replacing one another. The last batch to have returned from Darfur will see the United Nations replacing the military and police intervention with civilian presence. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
From that report by Ndayisisi, we go with a short commercial break and the news continues. Stay tuned.
The pride we take in our brand, the work we put into constantly change the landscape and elevate real estate in the Gambia, it's compared to none. From inception, our goal was to add value to the beautiful Gambian landscape. That's why we are proud innovators of community estates. Kololi Sands is an exceptional piece of work, tailored for ultimate convenience and luxury, to bring you an element of finesse that is rare but unique in its own. This is also our pride and joy, and we welcome you to the exquisite beauty right here in Kololi and right here on the waterfront. Kololi Sands, feel the ocean breeze at your doorstep.
Welcome back. If you're just watching, this is The World Today, and to the rest of our stories. Ghana's government is introducing new tax measures to help revive the country's economy that has been adversely affected thanks to COVID-19. There has been divided opinion among citizens over the new plan initiative, which, according to some, economics may not be sustainable. More in this report.
Ghana's economy is trying to recover from the disruptions caused by COVID-19. The government has proposed new taxes in this year's budget to shore up revenue. It includes a COVID-19 health levy of 1% on value-added tax and a 1% on national health insurance levy. But Ghanaians are divided on the introduction of new taxes.
I don't think it's a good thing for me because we don't know what they are using the money for. Some part of people are just keeping the money for their pocket. So I don't see the use of me to go and pay the fund or do anything about that.
We can't continue to borrow to fund our development, so I'm okay with the new taxes.
I don't support the introduction of the COVID-19 health levy because I don't believe the government will use the money for its intended purpose.
The government says it had to raise more than $4 billion through external loans to deal with the shocks caused by the pandemic. It now hopes to raise about $900 million from new taxes to finance its projects.
We should look at it holistically in the sense that while some sectors and some individuals or some activities in the economy are going to pay some new taxes, and those sectors are going to have the impact of that, and they are possibly going to transfer to the final consumer. We also have some of the final consumers, particularly in the informal sector, whose quarterly payments of stamp duties are suspended, also going to benefit.
Still, economists say the introduction of new taxes is not sustainable. They want the government to also tackle the shortfalls in revenue generation in the country.
We have situations where the appropriate taxes probably are not paid, and those that are making the effort to pay, we know, and it's a public knowledge that some of the amount paid don't get to the appropriate government coffers. And so this is a typical example where if you are dealing with the revenue, while there should be effort to open the base of the tax-paying populace, we should also deal with any leakages.
The government plans to use revenue from the COVID-19 health levy to fund the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines across the country and also build hospitals.
Ghanaians raised concern over the new tax initiative imposed by its government, and experts are worrying about its sustainability. Now addressing the 65th session of the United Nations Commission via video link on the status of women, the Vice President of America, Kamala Harris, called for the participation of women in decision-making. Ms. Harris said the U.S. is committed to upholding the democratic values embedded in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The session of the UN Commission on the Status of Women was held virtually due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which ravaged the world. DCC reports.
It is believed that women are more vulnerable to COVID-19 related economic effects because of the existing gender inequalities. As a result, the UN held its 65th session to look into the challenges women face. The theme was centered on women's effective participation in decision-making, as well as elimination of violence for achieving gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls. The U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris said it is important for women to be equally involved in decision-making processes.
The status of democracy also depends fundamentally on the empowerment of women, not only because the exclusion of women in decision-making is a marker of a flawed democracy, but because the participation of women strengthens democracy. And that's true everywhere.
To consider the status of women, VP Harris added that the world must also consider the status of democracy as well.
At its best, democracy protects human rights, promotes human dignity, and upholds the rule of law. It is a means to establish peace and shared prosperity. It should ensure every citizen, regardless of gender, has an equal voice, and free and fair elections that will respect the will of the people.
The COVID-19 pandemic has drastically increased gender equality, which affects women around the globe. The employment rate dropped drastically as a result of social distancing measures. This has impacted sectors with more females. Reporting for iAfrica News, I am Daisy.
From the reports by Ndai Sise ends The World Today. Gambia 24 is up next with Mariama Cham at 19:30 GMT. I am Sohna Tunkara. Thanks for watching and bye for now.
The Gambia may be the smallest country in Africa, but it will host the second largest gathering of world leaders in 2022. To successfully host the OIC Summit and put the Gambia on the global stage, the government of the Gambia set up OIC Gambia to mobilize resources for the implementation of key development and infrastructure projects on a scale never seen before. 20 new roads will be constructed across the country, and the Bertel Harding Highway will be expanded into a dual carriage highway of 2 lanes on each side from the airport to Sting Corner. All people in the Gambia deserve clean water and a constant flow of electricity. Therefore, an entirely new water system will be constructed, including new transmission and distribution networks to meet the increasing demand. In order to provide a more reliable supply of electricity, the OIC Gambia project will replace and double the capacity of the NAWEC transformers and overhead electric cables. We will equip the police with modern apparatus and technical training in an effort to keep the streets of the Gambia safe. By building the largest international conference center in the region, a